So it's a real pleasure to welcome Cirino back, one of our graduates. She graduated as an environmental studies major and then went on to graduate school in the School of Journalism, got a master's degree. She worked with Colonel Sabina and has become a very talented and prolific writer. And she's going to talk to us today about the garbage patch in the Pacific Ocean. And I just want to mention that probably most of the people in this room, and maybe even you, don't realize that the history of SOMAS, or MSRC, with marine debris goes back almost 50 years. In 1970, 71, there was a professor here by the name of Ed Carpenter who wrote a paper that was published in Science magazine, and he noted with alarm that there were plastic beads in the North Atlantic gyre. And from there, the next thing that occurred that MSRC got involved in was the great beach wash-ups of 1976 and 1987 and 1988. And in fact, the 88 beach wash-up ended up being highly publicized in magazines like Time, Newsweek, U.S. News and World Report. So in many ways, this school put marine debris on the map. And of course, since those early days, the problem of marine debris has gotten worse and worse. And now Erica has begun to write about it, and document it, and call it to everybody's attention, and hopefully we'll be able to do something about it. So Erica, it's great to have you back, and we think the world of you and what you've accomplished.
Oh, thanks. Well, thanks for having me. So, as part of my introduction, I'm a freelance science writer, and I've been traveling a lot and focusing mainly on ocean plastic, plastic pollution, and science. That's my most recent story fodder. So I've done other expeditions as well. Some of my most recent trips include backpacking in New Mexico, looking for wolves, and going looking for orcas in the Pacific Northwest, and going to the Appalachian Mountains, banding birds and documenting different experiments on birds. But when the opportunity arose last fall to go sailing across the eastern Pacific Ocean with a Danish group of sailors and scientists, I said, why not? I've known about the issue of marine debris for a long time. Since high school, I've learned about the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, and I've been concerned about it. But I really wanted to kind of just see what was out there. And my favorite quote, I would say, is a Jacques Cousteau quote: "We must go and see for ourselves." So that inspired me to kind of take up this journalistic ethic of actually going places and seeing things, rather than just interviewing people, which is an important part of journalism, but not everything. So really bearing witness. So this is me at the wheel. So I sailed in a 54-foot blue water sailboat. It was a steel sailboat built in Belgium 64 years ago, and now it's owned by a Danish crew. So we sailed into the garbage patch from Los Angeles, and our trip was from LA to Honolulu. We were expected to make it in 21 days, ended up taking 23. Due to a broken rudder and an engine problem, so it was a little longer than expected, but we made it on pure sail power alone. Anyway, we entered the patch, and this is what we saw. We saw large pieces of plastic debris, like that's a squirt bottle. We saw buoys and fishing gear, and even light bulbs were floating. They're not plastic, but they were floating through. Pieces of laundry baskets, and then we saw smaller little bits of plastic. And it was less of like what I thought a garbage patch would look like. It wasn't like a garbage dump exploded on the ocean. It was more like, okay, there are little pieces, there are big pieces, they're all floating around. There's a lot of it, but it doesn't feel like we're walking or sailing through a garbage dump. This is some of the debris that we found out there. Pink dustbin and some fishing traps and stuff like that. What really kind of demonstrated like the monstrosity of this problem was actually going to a beach, not being in the ocean, but going to a beach. While it was startling to see that stuff in the water, when we got to this beach, which was apparently extremely beautiful, we found out that it really wasn't. It was completely covered in plastic trash. So this sequence is probably, I would say, like one of the highlights of my whole presentation. This is Henrik. He owns Plastic Change. He founded it 2 years ago. And this sailing trip was actually the last leg of a 2-year expedition from sailing from Denmark across the Atlantic, through the Caribbean, through Panama, and now through the Pacific. So in each of those places, he took samples of water to kind of look for plastic. I'll explain the science a little later. But we visited this beach once we reached Hawaii because it was kind of told to us by locals that this was an important spot to kind of look at for pollution. So that's plastic where he's standing. And he's just scooping it out. And that is this whole thing. It's that one scoop. And I couldn't believe it when he did that. And then I brought it home and now I look at it in a jar and that's just so much plastic. Picking it up, it sticks to you. It's very kind of gritty feeling. It's almost like sand. There's just some photos I took. This is a dog going for a swim in the plastic. So we have this problem. So researchers trying to do something about it by learning more. So hopefully laws can be passed to kind of stop plastic pollution from happening in the first place. So the main way that scientists study this is by using what we call a manta trawl. It's named that because it's kind of spread out like a manta ray, like with wings. And there's a hole in the middle, and that's where any debris can go and get caught in its sock. So we would set that out for a few hours at a time, bring it back in, and then look in the trawl to see what we collected. Christian Suberg, he was the head scientist. He's actually analyzing all of this plastic in Denmark. And I'll explain later, I went to Denmark to go embed with him and see the samples being processed. But anyway, while out at sea, he would pull them up like this, and then we would divide it up into different sieves. And besides that, we pull plastic off the surface manually if we can see it. Ghost fishing gear, which is basically discarded or lost fishing nets and rope and stuff, that's all plastic. And it's so dangerous because animals can easily just get caught in it. It may not be small like this, but animals are greatly affected because they just get entangled. Another piece of sampling equipment was the vertical trawl. So it's called that because it hangs vertically through the water column. It's a little bit of a grainy photo, but it was a GoPro image, and it kind of demonstrates how it looks in the water. There are 11 tubes and socks, and they're at different depths, so it goes down way deeper than just the surface. So the big question now is there more plastic in the ocean than we think? And scientists think yes, because based on manta trawl samples, there's only 1% of all ocean plastic collected off the surface, because there's an estimated 8 million tons of plastic that enters the ocean every year. So if only 1% of that is accounted for, the question is, where is it going? And one way to try to answer that is searching deeper below the surface. So this is a 5 millimeter sieve, this is a 1 millimeter sieve, and then this is a 0.3 millimeter sieve. So it just shows you that this plastic breaks down into different tiny sized pieces, but it never fully goes away. So it'll just keep getting smaller and smaller. So say like this piece of plastic was floating in the water, over time it will break down, but it will just get so small that you can't see it. It will, to our knowledge, never go away. This is some monofilament. It's fishing line that we found. And then another way that we looked at this issue of is it really going deep in the water column. And mind you, this is the first time that this was ever done in the Pacific Ocean, so that's why this trip was kind of special. Was we used a point water sampler, and we dropped that down to 200 meters into the middle layer of the ocean. And so in that zone, it's called the mesopelagic zone, it dropped, and then as soon as it hit there, we kind of triggered it to close, so it took like a snapshot of the water at that depth. So it was just from that depth, and we pulled it up. So you can see it being deployed. And then once we pulled it up, the water contained in that sampler was put through a sieve, like a very fine mesh sieve. And so any residue was scraped off when they brought it back to the lab. Put them in little jars. Another kind of scientific analysis we were trying to do at sea was seeing biological effects of microplastic, which is what we consider this. Any plastic smaller than 5 millimeters. So the reasoning is that kind of plastic is extremely porous and it absorbs toxins from the water around it way more easily than, say, a big piece like this or a little straw. So anyway, when animals eat this plastic, it contains toxins. The toxins leach out, and then the toxins accumulate in an animal's fat cells. And over time, we don't rely on fat for energy all the time, but sometimes we do. So a healthy animal is totally poisoned even if it's not starving, because it will be relying on its fat for some energy. So when we were at sea, we thought, okay, let's see how the animals around us are being affected. So we caught 8 mahi-mahi. His name is Peter on your right, and then on the left is Rasmus. There were 2 Danish sailors. They caught 8 of those while we were at sea, so we had enough fish for about 16 days, because each fish lasted about 2 days for our crew of 9 people. So every time we caught a fish, we would take out the stomach, and we would cut the stomach open and see what was inside. And at one point we cut the stomach open and we found a little fish inside, and inside that little fish was microplastic. We took all the stomachs home, and we also took a piece of flesh from each fish home. We would salt these body parts, and then so they were preserved when we brought them back to Denmark. So we're going to be testing for toxins and also presence of any kind of physical effects that could be caused by a toxin. So for changes. So in February, I went to Denmark. I flew into Copenhagen actually with my dog, my Alaska Malamute dog. I brought her with me. So that was kind of a fun adventure. But when I wasn't exploring Copenhagen, I was in the laboratory at Earthstock University. And we used an FTIR machine, which involves testing different wavelengths of light through samples of whatever you want to test. So in this case, it was plastic. And that kind of helps you figure out, okay, what is this made out of? So what type of plastic? And is it plastic at all? Is there some kind of other contaminants in the plastic that's changing the wavelength and how it passes through? So that's all important if you want to know kind of where is the pollution coming from on land? Is it mostly water bottles? Is it mostly fishing gear? Is it mostly plastic bags? So that will kind of help us when having to pinpoint legislation that needs to be passed in order to prevent this problem from happening. So again, these are some of the big questions. Is it plastic? How much of the plastic is in the ocean? Where is it? What is it? What kind of plastic? What's in the plastic? And then what does that mean for humans? Because it's well known that wildlife is, like I was explaining before, how they get poisoned by plastic. And plastic is found in 90% of all seabirds, half of all sea turtles, and many fish. So it's kind of startling that it's been affecting so many animals. But yet, no studies to date have been done on humans, and that's kind of a big question. And obviously, ethical reasons prevent maybe some of that research from being done, and also scientific methods. It's hard to kind of just isolate plastic as a factor in human life, but it's a big question. Anyway, this is more work that was being done at the lab. This girl is studying how benthic fish move microplastic through sediment. So that's a big question, is if microplastic is on the ocean floor, which it has been documented in bottom-living animals like sea cucumbers and hermit crabs, is it going to be affecting these organisms, and is it affecting the ecology of the seabed? So that's a question that's being answered. The bright pink, that's the microplastic, so they use fluorescent microplastic, and they're watching it kind of move around in there with the worms. This is a shrimp. This was another way that they were studying how microplastic might be poisoning animals. So they watched as the microplastic went through the shrimp, they tested its toxicity, and they did find indeed microplastic can poison an animal. This is microplastic taken out of sewage sludge at a sewage treatment plant. And this is very new research, and it's very important, or the scientists said it was important in Denmark, because there they actually use sewage treatment plant sludge to fertilize crops. So imagine that they use that and it all contains plastic, so they're putting plastic on their crops every time they fertilize them. So that's more research being done, how much of the plastic is there, and does it contain toxins. So what do we know so far? Plastic never really breaks down, to our knowledge. It only breaks up into smaller pieces. Microplastic can harm animals not only physically by entangling them or choking them, but it can also poison them. New findings kind of say it seems that ocean plastic was way deeper than we expected, and there's a much greater total amount of plastic in the oceans than we've estimated previously. It's another shot of the lab in Denmark. So solutions, as I mentioned, legislation is kind of what scientists have told me is key. I met some people at NOAA as well when I was in Hawaii, and they have a big marine debris program there because Hawaii lies on the path of the gyre in the Pacific. So that tends to accumulate a lot of trash there. That's the main reasoning behind why that beach was so terrible. There are other places in the world like that. There are 5 main gyres across the whole world. But even on, outside of gyres, on beaches, even here locally, you can find a lot of plastic. So solutions are based on kind of what kind of research is done. So research in itself is somewhat of a solution. It's fueling future legislation, fueling future innovation. Kind of what experts have told me is we need to put the onus on manufacturers and consumers, and they need to really realize that this is a huge problem. So in terms of cleaning up the plastic, there's no easy way to do it. But beach cleanups can help. Even though they're small and usually local, it can do a lot to take, tons of plastic off the beach over a season. And, it's preventing certain animals from getting sick. Say, you take this many bags off the beach and, you prevent sea turtles from eating them. So that kind of thing really does help. It's not the answer, but it can help in the short term. Basically, we need to stop using plastic. That's what everyone has told me is the answer. Even though that's difficult, little changes can help. So every day people can just say, I'm going to buy a reusable water bottle. I'm going to use a bamboo fork. Things like that. I'm going to use reusable bags. So the decisions we make as consumers really do affect, our environment. This is the fun part. So life at sea. I helped take this photo. We drove out in a little dinghy away from the ship, which is so counterintuitive, especially when your ship has no engine. It still had the rudder at this point. But we're in this little leaking dinghy, the captain and I, and we also were sailing with a famous American artist named Chris Jordan. He takes photos of albatross, cuts them open, dead albatross, cuts them open, and exposes the plastic inside. It's kind of heartbreaking artwork, but it's powerful. So 3 of us, Captain and Chris and I, went out in the dinghy and we took these amazing faraway shots, but it was terrifying because we had thousands of dollars worth of equipment in a little dinghy and it's slowly filling with water and the big waves are coming and it was really fun, but it was a little nerve-wracking. These are just some shots of us pulling out of LA. It's a nice sunrise. Inside the boat. That was my bunk. I had the smallest bunk. I called it fondly the sarcophagus because it was shaped like a sarcophagus. We did everyday things, brushing our teeth, cooking. It's our little kitchen. We made pancakes. Wait till you see this. We made sushi. It's pretty amazing. It's breakfast, typical in the cockpit. And then our captain tore us into a sail. I went swimming in the Pacific Ocean in the middle of it. It was one of the most terrifying things I've ever done. It was amazing, but it was really cold, and I was just, you think about thousands of feet of water below you. It's kind of unbelievable. So, but it was the most incredible experience. I would definitely do it again. Captain Torsten. Unbelievable sunset. That's the Danish flag. We saw common dolphins. We saw pilot whales, albatross, tropic birds, and I think there's another albatross, I can't tell, or booby maybe. But that was when we were just seeing Hawaii. You could see that a little bit of land in the distance. So we had no rudder at that point. It broke 2 days before we landed. So that basically means for those of you who sail that you can't steer the ship at all. So kind of our captain tried directing one of our crew members to make a rudder out of wood. That didn't really work. So he said, okay, I had this old sailing book, and they say that you can use a spinnaker boom, which is the boom where you put a sail, and just throw it in the water with a few ropes, and that can help kind of weigh the boat down and steer it, and it worked. It took a long time, but it worked. So we made it. The Coast Guard was following us closely the whole time, the last 2 days, because they knew of our impaired condition. And yet the proud Danes I was sailing with did not want to have help, so we kept going. And, I don't blame them. We were doing fine. And I've never felt unsafe. I never felt nervous. I felt like, look, we're all working together. We're getting this done. So it was really good. This was Henrik. We were pulling into Honolulu Harbor. It was a very proud moment for him. It was very nice to see that he completed his mission. So it was really a great experience. And I'll be thanking you guys for having me and happy to take questions.
When did you go? When was the trip?
I set sail on November 1st, and then we landed on November 23rd, in past fall. Very recently.
So you pulled into Honolulu Harbor, and then where was that beach on Oahu?
So we pulled into Honolulu, you said.
Yeah.
We actually flew to the Big Island.
Oh, you did?
I should have said that, yeah. Camilo Beach. It's notorious for being super polluted.
Okay.
But they do cleanups there every week. And it's just amazing though, because we saw this huge growing pile of ghost nets that they had at this garbage dump facility, and it was just so big, and it was like tons and tons of netting. They just put it there and then they weigh it. So it was kind of unbelievable.
What do they do with it after?
They're going to throw it out. I don't know if they incinerate it. They have an incineration plant on the Big Island, but I don't know if that's where they're putting that specific trash.
Just to note that a long time ago, when I was your age and was spending a lot of time in Alaska, that the Native Americans up there actually depended upon marine debris for some of their resources. So they, the tundra and so forth, there's not a lot of trees, so they would get wood, they got coconuts and other things that they looked at as treasures, and it helped sustain them in some sort of a way, building their houses and what have you. And of course, now everything's gotten totally out of control. But it's interesting that historically, marine debris was in many ways a treasure.
Right. And it's funny too because speaking of the size of the problem, I ride my bike in Northport, where I live, and Asheroken is kind of a peninsula, and it has kind of water, and then there are big hills going to the main part of the land. And I've noticed plastic bags just fly up and get caught in the trees on the hillside. And I'm thinking, how did we go this wrong? Plastic has been an innovation for decades, and now it's everywhere. Literally places we just don't want it. So it's kind of crazy to think about that.
Did you find anything that you didn't expect to find?
I thought it was really interesting that I found a lot of repetitive items. So, for instance, when we were there, apparently a shipping container had spilled over off of a boat, barge rather, and 10,000 hangers, plastic clothes hangers, had washed up on Hawaii because of that. And so I had a lot of combs like this I found. So maybe another shipping container, I don't know. But it's just kind of the funny part of having mass-produced items is just really strange to me. So, and everything in Hawaii is basically barged in. And when we were sailing, we saw very few other ships, but when we saw ships, they were often just shipping barges. So.
The other day, Mark and I were talking about the rubber ducky races here. And have you heard the story of the rubber duckies in the Pacific?
Yes.
So you might tell the audience about that, because it's a fascinating story where debris actually is used as a tracer of ocean currents.
Right. So a shipping container, fell out and there were rubber duckies in it. And I don't remember exactly which current they were measuring, but it was, a way to kind of follow the ocean. It's kind of cool.
Right. So they washed up on British Columbia said, Larry, you know you should start looking for the rubber duckies on the East Coast if they've had the opportunity to go through the Northwest Passage and come down the East Coast with the Labrador Current. So I tell my students that they should never turn down the opportunity to bring a rubber ducky back to the class, and we could take the little number off of it and see if it was one of those that was fell overboard.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was the most prevalent item that you saw when you went out there? Is there one item that you saw more often than any other?
When we were on the ocean, we saw a lot of just buoys that had seemed to just been discarded. But on the beach, there were a lot of bottle caps, a lot of toothbrushes, like very disposable items. But that's what I would say, like personal hygiene items that were disposable, or bottles, like plastic bottles. Because they're used in such high numbers, it's just that's the probability of them being there.
Those seem benign. Are there more dangerous things that were found, like disposable razors or that sort of thing?
I didn't really see any of that. By the point that it gets to land, often they're like a little degraded. So like, speaking of dangerous, this is part of a toy gun. But you see, it's like they're very dulled down, and I don't know if the metal would be intact and still sticky to say like a syringe or something like that. It depends how long it was in the water for. But strangely, some research that Christian did previously with sampling in the Atlantic, he found that the most prevalent item was actually plastic bags and clear water bottles. So it just seems like I said, because those are used so often, that's what's there. But in terms of dangerous items, like physically dangerous, I don't think that's not a main concern. More concerning are big ghost nets and then the microplastic. So it's like either really big things or really tiny things.
Did they find that the Atlantic had the same as the Pacific, or was there a big distinction?
So results are still pending on like what they did there, what we did in the Pacific. But in the Atlantic and the Mediterranean, microplastics were way more prevalent by number of how many particles rather than big pieces. So it seems like it's breaking down very quickly, because if there were more big pieces, it might kind of be indicative of a lot of fresh stuff going in, but it seems like it's being cycled through the ocean, these plastics, over many, many years. So who knows how old some of these things are. Maybe it would be cool to kind of chemically trace them and see how old they are. So.
There's Sargasso seeds filled with plastic, intermingled with the Sargasso weed. So it's probably not visibly as prevalent, but numerically probably maybe even more, because the Atlantic Ocean is smaller and the coast is closer to the center of the ocean.
Another interesting find is a lot of trash from Japan, because the current, and it just kind of demonstrates that the current will really bring things around. Because Japan isn't terribly wide. It's pretty far, 2,000 miles, but still it's brought there. And apparently a lot of stuff from Fukushima washed up, and there's actually a routine kind of beach monitoring surveying program where it was put into place after Fukushima to kind of trace ocean trash and how much trash, what types. So while we did this beach cleanup in particular, the nonprofit that we were with, it was called Hawaii Wildlife Trust, they were doing a Fukushima beach survey, and that was kind of implemented by NOAA. So it's still going on even today, many years after, well not many years, but 5 years later, 6 years later. So, yeah. And I should add my next adventure as part of this, I would say, project I'm working on, reporting project. I'm going to Asia. I'm going to go to Thailand in June. I'm going upstate to meet with some freshwater plastic pollution experts, also in June. And then in August, I'm going to go to LA to meet Marcus Erickson of Five Gyres. He's one of the most, I would say, famous plastic pollution people that are alive today. So it's going to be exciting and add more and more evidence to this growing body of research that I've been accumulating. My stories from this trip in particular were featured in Undark magazine, Vice, and Scientific American. And it was, I would say, the first trip where I was really, I'm a very young reporter. last year when I graduated my master's. So to be able to be a photojournalist for these major media organizations is really an honor and so exciting to me. I'm really bad at sitting still, so it's like this is the perfect job. Yeah.
So do you fund your own trips and then sell your articles to National Geographic and what have you?
I do. The majority of my work is self-funded, with the exception of last year I was sent out by National Audubon Society to cover a story about birds in class. This trip I funded by myself, but I won a fellowship through Carl Sakina Center. Just a few $1,000 helped me travel, what's going to help my travel to Thailand and upstate in California. So, I mean, every little bit does help, and but I'm happy to kind of work for this kind of trip because I do think that even if I don't say get enough stories to reimburse me for my travels, I feel like the experience and the notoriety is there. As long as I'm paying bills every month, I do that. So.
The one slide you had with the in the lab with the pink plastic.
Yeah.
Do they sort through to find pink plastics to test, or?
No, it's manufactured. They buy it in little baggies. Yeah. It's funny seeing it actually, because they literally just have a bag of plastic. Oh, you bought this. It's like, okay, you're buying it. But I guess they has to be that way, so it's sterile in one condition and not tainted yet. But they did taint it to do the research on the shrimp. They kind of incubated the plastic with fluorethane, which is a kind of a contaminant. And then they passed it through different shrimp and fed it to them. So, because they're clear, you can watch how long it takes. And they found that actually the contaminated plastic took more time to pass through them, I guess, because it was being absorbed. So.
And how about the mahi-mahi that with cameras that they test for, and those fish samples that they took?
We're still waiting, but they're going to look for persistent organic food, which is basically pesticides, looking for heavy metals, they're looking for any kind of industrial compounds like PCBs. So those are the major ones that we know do exist in the ocean. That's what they're going to look for. And those are also very easily absorbed by plastic. So they're not saying it causes that, because it could be that algae also absorbs toxins, and we just don't know that. I felt weird eating the fish. I honestly did. I felt like, oh no, is this really safe? But when you're out there and you eat nothing but rice and beans for days and days, you're like, okay, well, I wish I had something fresh, so I eat it.
I'm going to ask you a question about your sampling.
Yeah.
You showed us a picture of a screen where you were collecting plastic in the swash zone.
These?
Yeah, I think, well, it was essentially the stuff that's in the jar.
Right.
So you collected that, it looked like right in the swash zone,
Right.
where that stuff tends to congregate. So if you went out 100 feet and did the same thing, would you get the same concentration? So my question is your sample
Right.
a fair sample?
Right. When we were out at sea, we had a big boom holding the trawls out, way out. We didn't take any samples from the beach for scientific purposes. That was just like a demonstration. But when we were at sea, we kept the trawl out for 4 hours, so we kind of kept track of how long it was out, but also how much distance we covered, our speed, and the longitude, and we kind of just dragged it through. I think it was pretty fair based on what we were doing. But something that does affect it is weather and the speed of the ship. So we kept the speed as constant as we could, but of course it's not going to be perfect. But we would be between 2 and 4 knots. And it's a slow speed, but any type of wind action on the water does affect the mixing of the plastic. And on windier days, researchers showed there is less plastic on the surface because it's going a little bit underneath and maybe you're not catching all of it. So that's definitely something to consider. But based on how many days we were out there and how many samples we took, to me, it seemed like it was done in a systematic way. So.
Did you encounter any major storms?
The last downpours. I'll never forget on the last day when we were trying to make it. I was sitting underneath this little overhang, and water was coming in to the boat, and it was probably up to like my waist almost. And I was sitting down, and it's just in the cockpit, and then it spilled back out. But it was just rain coming in, water coming in, and then I'm sitting under this overhang, and all of a sudden we hit a huge wave, and then all the water that was on the roof of the boat just fell down into my jacket and into my pants and my shoes, and I was like, I couldn't get dry. So, but I mean, my first 24 hours I was extremely seasick, and I was really nervous that I wouldn't be able to kind of do my job. Like, I was required to sail 8 hours a day. So besides doing my journalism duties, I was a sailor. Like, everyone had to sail 8 hours a day. So I was nervous. I was like, I can't hold up my end of the bargain. I promised them I would sail, and then it passed after a day. But it was really rough first day, just being sick.
How do you account for that? Like, my sea legs are terrible.
Yeah.
And so I have that same fear. How does it pass?
Some people were taking like medication for it, like Dramamine, when they had. I had these. I want to say they were like pressure point bracelets,
Okay.
and I don't know how much they were like psychological versus actually doing anything, but I wore them and I seemed to be, doing fine the rest of the trip. It was just that first day.
Were you wearing them that first day?
I did. I wore them the first day. I wore them the whole time, essentially. They may have taken them off when I was like, I'm fine. Then I just took them off. But most of the trip I wore them. And it was just fun because, I came into this sailing experience, but it was me with I was probably 13 years old. I had a little laser sailboat that I would just take out. And, because I thought sailing was really fun when I was younger. I would just take it out and, capsize and just zoom around a little harbor in Huntington. And then, I see this boat, and I'm like, wow, I'm really sailing. Now it's real. So, that was really fun.
Can you describe the sky
Oh
at
my
night?
gosh. It was the most beautiful environment I've ever been in, I would say. Because it's just, you see so many stars, and then, there's no lights around you to kind of distract you. You just see that. And, we're looking at constellations. My sailing partner would take out his iPhone, and we would try to, match the constellations with an app that he had. And, I would say it's just extremely beautiful just to see that unspoiled sky. And the sunsets and sunrises were unbelievable. I have so many photos of that. Almost like you would get bored looking at it, because you're like, okay, that's beautiful. Okay, that's beautiful. So I think
After all that time at sea, what was it like when you saw the coast on a walk?
I was actually on a really early shift that day, so I was super tired. I went to bed at I was on a 2 a.m. shift, and I went to bed at 6 a.m. because at that point, because we were compromised with our rudders, we had switched the shifts. Otherwise, it was 4 hours, 4 hours. So my shift got moved earlier that day because we needed me earlier, and I was so tired, and I just went to my bunk, and then someone was shaking me awake, and it was Peter, this guy on the right. He goes, Erica, we reached Hawaii, and I didn't want to believe him because I was just I just want to sleep, And then he's like, get your life jacket on, and get your red shirt on, because we all wore the red plastic jean shirts because people filmed us coming in. And so I put on my gear and I went up, and I was like, oh my gosh, we actually are here. And it was such an amazing feeling that we had worked together to accomplish it. This is the photo I was thinking about. It's much nicer when I like that. That was really cool. Anyway, so we reached land, and I get off the boat, and I was so nervous because I was like, oh no, how is this going to feel like? And I got on land, and it was so rough. I was moving like this because I just did not feel used to being on land. It was I missed the boat. I lived on the boat for another 2.5 weeks while we were living in Hawaii because it was just cheaper to stay on the ship than to find a room. We did stay in a hotel for a few nights, a few of us, but we just wanted showers and luxuries. So.
Did you see the green flash?
What's that?
When the sun sets, it to it, so if you go again, you should look at the
Yeah.
flag.
I saw amazing bioluminescent algae. That was super cool. And at night when basically we had a toilet